Dear students, today's lecture will be based on Indian English fiction and plays of Shashi Deshpande in it. The fiction writing basically started during 1930s by the contribution of three stalwarts Anand, Roy and R.K. Narayan. This tradition was carried forward by the contribution of many female writers like Nayanthara Sehgal, Jhabawala, Kamra Markandeya, Anita Desai and Shashi Deshpande, so on. The earlier women writers, writing in English, they wrote about female protagonists as a member of society. They have projected women very ideal being, paragon of virtue, or as a demigoddess or something very despicable. But gradually, with the emergence of Anita Desai, Shashi Deshpande, the locus of hegemony was shifted from the outside to the inside world, and exploration of the inner landscape of human psyche. It is a domestic space which is getting foregrounded in women's writing. They were writing about home, relationship, family, especially the tussle between tradition and the modernity. Male writers, they have always touched about the issues which are related with society, politics, nation, and their issues have been considered significant. In this context, Virginia Woolf, in a room of one's own, she is writing, males' issues, war and peace are always been given great importance, but the issues that are related with women, their experiences, their drawing room experiences are always been neglected and rejected. But despite these negligence, the women writers all over the world wrote about women experiences challenging the mainstream. In India, to discuss openly women's issues like marriage, menstruation, gyno problems, motherhood, these are what path-breaking steps. There was no tradition of women telling their own stories exist in India. Women lives had to be kept private. There was no public telling or public articulation of their experiences. So, in that sense, it did make a great difference in the way women begins to write about their own stories, often in autobiographical mode. The women writers begin to enjoy a certain kind of visibility from the 1950s and 1960s onwards. Anita Desai's women-centered writing has changed the course of feminist writing. Her serious concern is with the exploration of the troubled sensitivity of her characters, especially women. They are torn between tradition and modernity. They are trying to search their identity. There is a quest for identity, and in this search they have to suffer from anxiety, rootlessness, alienation, and at times they are committing suicide. Shashi Deshpande, she has broadened the canvas of Indian English fiction by giving it a fresh touch, a fresh turn. She creates a sensation in the literary world by her unique presentation of stories strictly adhering to Indian context and Indian society. She is especially explicitly writing for Indian writers. She is one of the eminent novelists of contemporary Indian literature in English. She, being in the literary field for 4 decades, now enriched it by her a number of short stories, novels, essays, interviews, the literature for children, articles. She has received for her contribution many awards and accolades. The web of her main text is woven from Indian women's lives, their day-to-day living, deeply impregnated by religious, social and political traditions and gender relations determined by male power structures. Her interest comes to center more and more on the women of the middle and upper middle classes, well-educated women who fight for their own space, for their place in the family, in their social and cultural settings. Deshpande projects the world of female with utmost sincerity and sympathy. She deals socio-psychological aspect of Indian womanhood. The themes of her oeuvre are women's plight, anguish, frustration, travels, privation, and struggle to make her position in this patriarchal society. She conveys not only the predicament of women, but also their efforts to overcome all these problems. Her female protagonists are refuting the patriarchal stereotype ideologies that entraps women in customs and traditions. Women are deconstructing the constructed notion of her identity. Her story suggests that compromises what characterize the life of the common run of the middle class women in India. Unable to defy social conventions or traditional morality, the middle class women themselves are enmeshed by desires and despairs, loves and hates, withdrawal and alienation, marital discord and male chauvinism. Her male characters, this is very significant. If she at a one point of a side she talks about the predicament of women, then she talks about the predicament of men also. They are also the product of this society. They have been also socially constructed. So those characters are also the victim of this society. Through the helpless, they suffer like women. These men characters are tradition bound and face the problem of adjustment. Even though female characters, they talk a lot about their suffering, their inner trauma. The silence of the male characters convey the meaning. So their life is been conveyed through their silence. This is the story of victimized men. Shashi Deshpande not only projects the female as a victim, but also shows how equally men characters too suffer and victimize in the society. But at the end, how men and women characters compromise and accept themselves as they are. So it ends with hope, begins with doubt, begins with quest, but ends with hope. Shashi Deshpande's writing career began in 1970, initially with short stories. Later on, she turned to novels. Her first novel is Dark Holes, No Terror, published in 1980. This novel explores the trauma of a middle-class working woman who has been trapped in this society. She is a successful doctor. Her husband is simply an ordinary lecturer. The husband, out of jealousy, out of frustration or inferiority complex, makes her life hell. In the morning, Sarita, the protagonist, she is a successful doctor, respected highly. At night, she is a terrified animal, sexually abused by her sadistic husband. But at the end, she resolves to overcome her fear, to change her lot. The criticism on Shashi Deshpande started soon after the publication of her first novel, The Dark Holes No Terror, in 1980. Meenakshi Mukherjee's review may be the first to appear in April 1981. She points out, quote, "It is a compelling first novel, reminiscent at times of the early Margaret Devil in the shifting intensity. The novel is concerned with the vulnerability of childhood and how one carries the sears of early wounds throughout the life. The impression that a person achieves during her or his childhood remains throughout in his life, unable to come off this trauma. The language and craftsmanship of her writings were acquired laboriously, for which she has highly been acclaimed, even the critics like K.R. Srinivas Iyengar. He appreciates her racy style of narration and a crisp language. He places Shashi Deshpande in the shelf of new arrivals. He says her approach to life is rare and appreciable, and adds, quote, "In this unpredictable world, even total despair can open up a new spring of elemental self-confidence. Her language, according to Iyengar, flows down undisturbed, and there is a flexibility wherein she moves from present to the past and to present with less strain to herself as well as the reader. So there is a smooth going, even if she moves flashback or flash forward. Her protagonists are all females, and the events described revolve mostly around domestic spheres. M.K. Nair appreciated lucidity and clarity of her work, and freeing it means the Indian English literature from the exotic depiction and avoiding verbal pyrotechnics. A.N. Dwivedi observes, quote, Deshpande dwells on desperation and frustration, misunderstanding and incompatibility, sense of guilt and sense of loss, loneliness, alienation of a sensitive woman pitted against an ill-mated marriage and hostile circumstances around her. The chief thematic concern of her writing is with women's struggle in the context of contemporary society. Her effort to find and preserve her identity as a wife, mother, and most of all, human being. Her writings are not asking for feminine space, but it is demanding the human space with which the women are deprived of since centuries. Deshpande's women protagonists are victims of prevalent cross-gender discrimination, first as daughters and later on as wives. Fettered to their roles in the family, they question the subordinate status ordained to them by society. Apart from female quest for identity, other themes of her are frustration, guilt, fear, loss, loneliness, death, very sensitive issues of the life. She touched upon that with sensitively. Her themes on human relationship within the family bond express her valuable and authentic experience and her understanding of the complexity of this relationship. Man and woman relationship is a relationship which always been highlighted or been become the important aspect of the writings in the in many works, and she is exploring it, but with a sense of with a touch of sensitivity. She has a distinct tradition of her own, and that is rooted in social and cultural context to which she belongs. Deshpande's works is been termed as a feminist text, though she denies, or any female writers deny it, because they say a work by a male writer has been never been called, or a writer has never been addressed as a masculinist writer, or his work is focusing masculinism. So why does it happen in the case of the women? But it happens. This is the way the critics tag females' work. Deshpande's feminism, if we call, it differs from its militant, radical Western counterpart that demands equality in every domain. Her Indian feminism lies in the fact that her female protagonists don't demand equality, ruthlessly breaking all the constraint of the society. Actually, they are demanding respect, dignity. They don't want to destroy all the ties of the family or of the society, but they are just searching for their place in the family matrix in the society. In her scheme of things, liberation for women means to value human relationship. However, restriction they might be, and not to run away from responsibilities of wifehood and motherhood. Because of this aspect, I like the writings of Shashi Deshpande, where she is not, the protagonists are not breaking everything, running away, but they are accepting it, and they are asking that they should be given some significance and importance. So it's not a kind of escape, but it is accepting with better responsibility and with better understanding. Her writings are marked by continuous evolvement, perpetual growth, because life is a perpetual journey. The norms, ethos, scenario, which are very important today, cannot remain very significant after some time. And the thoughtful writers are paying attention to this aspect. So, in her writings, initially she has presented the women, those who are been suppressed, those who are subjugated, but they have moved from this stage. Now they are self-assured, self-employed, and they are articulating their experiences forcefully. In earlier novels of Deshpande, the protagonist struggled to establish her identity and assert her individuality. But in later novels, the women are full of her power, full of her individuality, and who does not value human relationships if they come in the way of her dreams, aspirations, and cherished goals of life. If they want to achieve anything, they are achieving without taking consideration of any aspects of the society. Later on, she has written about these kinds of women. The glory, the fulfillment, the self-actualization for which these women are aspiring, it comes to them, but not without payment. They have to suffer, they have to pay a lot for that in the society. In early phase of her writing, she wrote novels like The Dark Holds No Terror, That Long Silence, that reflect patriarchy as the major form of dominance, oppression and subjugation, and exhibits the silence of Indian women are cause of their dilemma. They are, because of the pressure of the society, they remain silent, they are not expressing their views, and that's why they are suffering. The novels represent marriage as a means to trap women like an animal or a bird into a cage. Both the novels are based on women's search for identity and their emancipation, their craving for emancipation from patriarchy. Breaking away age-old tradition, age-old silence. In second phase of her writing, the women have now moved ahead, though they have to pay for it drastically, like Savitri Bai, Leela in Small Remedies. Savitri Bai, because of her junoon, her passion for music, she gives us a respectable, comfortable, Brahminical lifestyle. She had to sacrifice her husband, her lover, her daughter, and to embark on her quest for her success. And she becomes a successful singer, but for which she has left everything behind. In the third phase of her writings, Deshpande presents the female figure. They are now educated, independent-minded, employed, and self-sufficient, like Devyani in The Country of Deceit. The novel was published in 2008. Driven by physical fashion, motivated by progressive ideology, Devyani plunges headlong into an unconventional relationship with a married man, Ashok. Ashok is not presented as a seducer or a rake, but is open in his dealings with Devyani. The one topic that recurs in the novel is that physical passion and its relevance to life. Though Devyani makes a conscious move to break the traditional norms and go her own way in exercising her right to sexual satisfaction outside the institution of marriage, she fails to overcome the societal stigma such an act entails. Societal values asserted in the end, themes of her writings get changed with the change of time. So, depicting the subjugation and then aspiration for their passion, and then they are not ready to accept anything of the society. They are living their life on their own terms, but at the end, even in Country of Deceit, they are paying attention to societal values. They are not thoroughly able to break up these societal values. At the end of the lecture, I want to say that in her fictional career, Deshpande has created a niche for herself by her sensitively and exclusively handling man and woman relationship. She is of the opinion it is only through relationship with others that we sense our own, why we were and why we are today. So she gives importance to man-woman relationship. They both are the integral part of the society. They have to live in the society and both of them have to cope with each other. These realizations, identity, certainly help the characters to move on in life. Let's move to next segment of this lecture. In the next lecture, stay in tune. Goodbye, students.